So, can you believe it's been 4 years since we got hit by Hurricane Maria? I certainly cannot. It literally feels like it was yesterday. But at the same time, not really, because at least for me, that was like a really different life back then, even though it wasn't even half a decade ago. But at the same time, it's crazy when, each anniversary gets here and it's just like, 3, 4, eventually 5, 6 years. And that is why today I want to go back in time a little bit and react to my documentary that I made about my experience during Hurricane Maria. And it's easy to put these events behind us and forget, especially for those who are on the outside of the situation. And so I hope that by rewatching this piece of literally history together, it'll hopefully remind us that the island hasn't really recovered. Puerto Rico's still very much broken, and I'm feeling pretty nervous, if I'm being honest. I contemplated making this video quite a bit, but I feel like I'm making it for reasons that hopefully will benefit the island. So that's kind of what kept me going, because this footage is not easy for me to look at. There's a reason why I have avoided it. But for today, we're gonna put the present aside and go back to 2017 and see where I was and just, what I was doing and how I processed this event. So yeah, without further ado, let's relive Hurricane Maria.
Alright, so it has been about a week and a half since we got hit by Irma.
Oof.
As we take it day by
My
day
heart.
over the evolution of this hurricane, you can see where the cone of uncertainty takes it, either just over the British Virgin Islands by Wednesday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, it'll just be approaching San Juan, Puerto Rico. But keep in mind that this cone of uncertainty does cover right over the island of Puerto Rico.
First supermarket is absolutely...
My heart is pounding. Oh my god.
I never really believed the whole thing with, the calm before the storm. I honestly thought that was just like a big stereotypical thing to say. But when I got out of my house, I felt such a weird vibe. There's like not a single wind. If you look at the trees, they're like almost perfectly still, which is obviously unusual. They're always moving and stuff. Climate feels really...
Yo, that's really true. That was so freaky. The trees, I still remember that. They were so still. I was like weirded out by it. Wow.
I'm not gonna...
Yo, this park looks so different. If I take you there now, it's so different now. It's crazy. It's crazy to see things before one of the most devastating events in Puerto Rican history. It's crazy. Oh. And we lost power! Of course, when I'm reacting to a Hurricane Maria documentary. Wow. This is what I mean when I say the island hasn't recovered. Okay, hold on. Alright. Power's back. Hopefully it stays that way, so let's continue.
Not lie, I am nervous. I've never really been through one of these.
Those plants were really heavy, and I had to move them so many times.
Why do you have so many plants? Look at how fast the clouds are moving. It's pretty insane.
Oh wow. That's crazy. I totally forgot about this part. Just how clustered up we were in the house, but not even the house, just like the different rooms that we had. There's one specific room in my house which is the safest because it's like a room within a room. So we ended up in there a lot of the time through both of the hurricanes. See, that's one of the things I just totally didn't remember.
The storm has definitely not been what they predicted it to be. I think it's because the eye is 50 miles from the coast of San Juan, and the really bad hurricane winds are within that 50-mile region. Irma is like right on top of us, but it doesn't feel like it. Like, yeah, we get...
That is because Irma missed us by like, how much, like 50 miles or something, which is crazy. It's literally a perfect analogy of it is getting shot, but the bullet just scraping your skin instead of impacting your body. That's how close it was, like how close we were to getting hit by Irma. And if Irma hit us, I wouldn't be in Puerto Rico right now, because getting hit by both Irma and Maria, I think would have been the end of Puerto Rico.
I was originally planning on finishing that video with this shot, or a shot similar to this one, but turns out we're getting hit by another storm.
This morning, Maria
Yep.
was a Category 1 hurricane. Now, as of the 11 a.m. advisory, it jumped 2 categories.
This guy's voice gives me a little bit of PTSD, because I watched I think this was like 13 News. Yeah, I put the source. I was watching that guy most of the time because I feel like he had the most accurate coverage of the storm. And I've seen him cover recent hurricanes as well, but I'm like, no.
Rapid intensification underway as it's moving into waters in a similar setup that allowed Irma to get so strong so fast. Main threat to Puerto Rico.
This time we're getting...
So glad I've discovered manual focus since then. Just a film joke.
directly hit by the thing. Like, the eye is gonna go right over us. Puerto Rico has just been flipped upside down in the last 48 hours. Like, you know, people going to buy supplies like all around. I went out yesterday and it was crazy. I had to wait in line for like 45 minutes just to get gas. And there's no water in anywhere. With Irma, I had all these expectations, but really, we dodged an insane bullet, and it was not what we expected. But with this storm, it's like, this video is honestly taking some interesting routes that I did not expect it.
I want to clarify something. I never intended for this to be a documentary. This video was originally going to be kind of a check-in with my audience to just let everybody know that I was okay and show them kind of what I had been through. But I ended up capturing so much footage that eventually it surpassed the 45-minute mark, which is when things start to kind of fall into that feature film category. So that's kind of why I was like, oh, this video is taking a really interesting turn, because I didn't expect this, because it was truly a shock. I was like recording a video that I thought was just going to be like a vlog, and then this massive hurricane's coming. I'm like, oh my god, okay. I actually also captured a lot less footage for Maria than I did for Irma, because Irma was the one that was forecasted to be the horrible monster hurricane, and it ended up not really doing anything to us. So, like, I was really preparated for that one. Maria, however, was like forecasted to be this monster hurricane, but it wasn't directly gonna hit us until like 2 days before it made landfall. So in a way, I was like, well, you know, I doubt this thing's gonna hit us. And then 2 days before, oh, it's gonna hit us. And that is how I ended up recording all of this. But it ended up being a more raw experience because I didn't like properly prepare and have all like this fancy footage and stuff like that. It was more like me holding the camera, like recording everything that I could under circumstances, because I was also pretty nervous. But I think that's what made it special. because it made it extremely realistic. RIP, that tree is no longer there. They cut it down after the hurricane, and it was actually really heartbreaking because it had been there for 20 years, at least since I moved there.
O 9 de la mañana, esta madrugada vamos a
Oof.
continuar con vientos y saliendo entre 8 y 9 de la noche a través del noroeste de Puerto Rico. Regresamos ahora con David y con Felipe.
At that point, we started losing power and obviously internet, so we had to rely on the radio for updates on everything going on. Actually, this entire experience literally took us back to like the 90s because we had no modern technology.
Jesus. Whoa. That just escalated so quickly, like out of nowhere.
I think this was like the last hour that I had cell phone service because I remember that was the last update I was able to get on my phone before the storm actually arrived and knocked everything out.
The red area right here is the bad hurricane winds, the 160 mile per hour winds, which are just starting to come into the island. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit unsure if I should be in the living room. Right.
Mind you, the living room was completely safe. We had shutters, and even our windows were pretty strong. They were not like glass windows. So the fact that I felt unsafe, even under a pretty safe environment, goes to show just how strong this hurricane was, even if in its early stages. And I remember just being in that room, kind of freaking out, because I felt like the room was closing in on me. Like any minute, it was just gonna burst, you know?
I don't know if I should be here, but I couldn't.
Yeah, I think the winds were supposed to enter the island around like the morning, maybe around 7 a.m., but they started to enter around 5 a.m.
Voy a abrir esto con cuidado. Alexandra. No.
Whoa. Mira, ay, Benny.
This was such a nerve-wracking moment because I was mostly worried about the dogs, because the dogs were like trying to get out. They were like outside dogs, so they thought we were like taking them out to go potty or something. And I was so scared because the winds were so strong at that point that I was just scared that the wind gusts would like take one of them or something. And I was like recording as I was like, I really hope I don't capture something traumatic on camera. So I was like trying to balance like capturing what was going on, not getting my camera wet, which, by the way, one of my cameras got water damaged because of this hurricane, still is water damaged, and also just trying to, help my friend. Their safety was my priority. I literally was just, I hit record and I wasn't even paying much attention to the camera. Yeah, I was so nervous at this point. Especially because he decided to leave as soon as he was starting to go inside. My God, my heart dropped when he got near the door and then decided to go back. You can tell in my hand, I was literally trying to close it. I'm holding the flashlight trying to close the door. Meanwhile, I think our friend was still in the apartment, which, by the way, the reason why we had to take them upstairs was because the apartment downstairs was filling up with water. Doing what I'm about to do, I think, was one of the riskier things I felt I did. Actually, it wasn't the riskiest, that'll come later, but this was the first time where I felt myself pushing the limit a little bit, because when you're gonna go through a major hurricane, it is advised that you don't get close to the windows for obvious reasons. Things could come in and break the window and kill you or something, or the shutter can fly off and then the window fly off. In this case, we stayed away from the windows because the wind gusts were incredibly strong and scary. But I was actually filtering a lot of my fear through recording what was going on. I decided that I wanted to capture what I was seeing, which was how the door, even with the shutter covering it, was just going crazy.
Whoa.
You can see myself going back a little bit because I was contemplating, should I actually get close to this door? Because at first I thought it was a good idea, and then I was really, really thinking about it as I did it. But then I decided to do it. See it? How the window was just the shutter was shaking, and so was the window. The window just kept going back and forth. The door. I was really nervous when I recorded that clip. I really do remember that, because I felt like any minute something could go through that door, or that door could get ripped off and something was going to happen to me. And I just remember the seconds just felt so long because, I wanted to get out of there. Same thing with this window, which actually that window was incredibly weak. But because the winds did not get to that side of the house, we were able to be safe. And that was actually the door where I was able to access even throughout the hurricane.
Something just fell in the roof. It just was like a big boom. Whoa.
Oh my God.
Todavía no. No, cuando se vuelva a tormentar, yo me voy con está bien, ok. Pues Laura, are you gonna put Chiquita on the...
Oh, whoa.
Jesus. That's crazy. The living room was relatively safe. We had pretty good protection, but the wind and the sound of the wind was so strong that we felt in danger anyways. And especially my mom was the one who was freaking out the most, which is understandable. And that's why we started to plot that if one of the windows or the shutters flew off, we were going to evacuate to the safe room that I told you guys about earlier, because that's how strong the winds were becoming, and we were starting to doubt the safety of the living room. Notice how I was sitting in in kind of like the middle of the living room is because I was too scared to go to any of the windows. Alright, so that's, yeah, the sun started coming up and it just got crazier because now not only were we listening to the monster, but we were looking at it. Wow. That was a really powerful shot. It's crazy.
Wow, me cayó agua encima.
Yeah. That's how powerful the gusts were. The windows were shut closed and they even had shutters covering it, and the water was still seeping through and splashing on me. And it's also crazy how even though the camera that I was using at the time, which is actually the same camera I'm using right now, I was using the internal audio of it, and it was still able to capture how powerful the sounds of this thing were.
Oh my god.
Jesus. A little context on this, I ended up missing out on the eye of the storm, which apparently my mom and her friends got to experience. I don't really regret it because I was super sleep deprived in this, but it would have been a great opportunity to get that first glance of the destruction, but I don't know. It's just one of those things, I guess, that just happened how it needed to happen. Because keep in mind, when the eye is passing, it's almost like there's nothing going on. Everything gets calm.
10, 11 a.m., I don't know, but I just woke up.
Notice my hand on the screen. I literally had to, I had to hold the screen and holding the camera on this one because the screen was literally pushing against me and it could fly towards me because it would, like I said, it's a really weak window. So that's just, those are just the details, man. I've forgotten. I got soaked recording all of this.
Oh my god!
Okay, I was a little bit of a daredevil filming this because, like I said, I was filtering my fear through recording this and capturing all of this footage. And obviously the fear kind of died down a little bit and I got a little bit of that filmmaker's bug and I wanted to capture more and more and more. So I started to push the limit a little bit, and this was another one of those moments where I did. And don't worry, I was still safe because in front of me, the hurricane was like going like this. The wind, I mean. It wasn't going towards me. So I was relatively safe. I just needed to make sure that I didn't, go out into my backyard because in that case I would have been in real danger. But the walls that I had to my sides were protecting me.
Wow, I can't believe it. It looks empty.
My mom was kind of, I think she was, because I was holding onto the door and she was holding my arm because she was really freaking out. And I'm sorry that I put my mom through that fear, but
That is strong. And when I look way farther from here, like towards the
you can't even hear me well. That's how strong the sounds were.
city, you can see you can't see it, but I can see like all the trees, all the palm trees. It's just complete deforestation. I really wish I could give you guys some better views, but this is the best that I can do.
I think that one of the most special things about this documentary is the fact that I didn't give you better views of the hurricane. You know, I didn't give you those like storm chaser shots, like professional, like really direct, like face to face with the monster, because this is truly what the experience was like for most people in the island. And I think that's why the documentary connected so strongly with so many people. A lot of us didn't see the hurricane until the morning came, until it was almost over, you know, or some of us didn't even get to see it because it was too dangerous to open windows. It was too risky. But above all, I think what this documentary did was provide what the emotional experience was like, rather than the visual crazy storm, you know, perspective. Hurricane Maria, although completely battered us, it also just completely emotionally depleted us. And, you know, a lot of people have PTSD as a result.
Everything that was there is not there anymore.
I think that was one of the biggest shocks for me was that everything was gone in just a matter of hours. And not everything, but, you know, the civilization that I was used to seeing, it was just completely wiped clean, as if it was never there. I mean, it was still there. It was just shattered in pieces in the floor for us to pick up.
This is Mother Nature at its fullest. I'm trying to take my dog out to pee, and look, that tree fell.
When we started to take our pets out, this was towards the end of the storm, so this was around lunchtime, I would say. The storm was starting to die down a little bit, so whenever the gusts would clear out, we would try to take our pets out, which I was kind of against it. I was like, just let them pee inside. Like, whatever, we'll pick it up. I don't want to go outside and risk it because, yes, I was being covered by this white wall, but if I went to the back of my backyard, I was gonna put myself in a bad risk. And plus, none of the animals went to the bathroom anyway, so we tried, but I was too scared. This was one of the moments where I was, like, actually scared.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
This is not gonna work.
You can hear my mom, like, shouting for me, like to check that I was still there.
Uh-oh, what was that? ¿Escuchaste eso? The entire highway is now visible from my bedroom.
That is so crazy. That's still one of the craziest changes, I think, that occurred for me. Because now, you know, it's been 4 years, so that highway is covered up again. But it's crazy to see it. It looks closer than it actually is when it's not covered up. Okay, so this is that risk I took. I think this was probably the dumber thing that I did while filming this documentary, because we basically decided to leave the house, and the storm, you know, the worst part of it was over, you know, but there were still remainders of gusts outside. You know, the tail of the storm was still kind of over us. But, you know, here in Puerto Rico, we don't tend to follow the rules sometimes. And I remember my mom had gone to sleep because she hadn't slept. And so her best friend, her mom, and I decided, oh, let's go check out, you know, what things are looking like outside. And we weren't the only ones, so I don't recommend people do this. I was not thinking like somebody who was trying to survive. I was thinking like somebody who was recording an experience.
All of that is my neighbor's garage door. It's just went flying all over the place. Oh my gosh. This is not safe. Our neighbor's door is actually chopped in half. Look at it.
I don't know if I mentioned this in the documentary, but my neighbors, they were not in the house when the hurricane happened. They actually left somewhere. But when they came back, they basically told us that the whole house was flooded because of that door that was broken. And they lost a lot of their belongings because it was ruined by the water. And it's crazy because their house is literally right next to ours. Even though, their door was clearly not protected, but still, it's just crazy how our location had nothing to do with, safety. Because the people who lived right next to us, their house was devastated, at least in the inside. Okay, so this was, I think, the main scare that I had while filming this documentary, and I'll explain in a bit what happened.
I was having trouble walking over here. Like, look at my hair.
Yeah. So what basically happened is we went to the specific part of my neighborhood that didn't really have any structures or trees or anything. It was just like a really wide open space of concrete, almost like a parking lot. And it was the entrance to a building. We got caught in a pretty strong gust, and because there was nothing to counter that gust away from us or to protect us from it, our bodies literally started to feel weightless because that thing was literally pushing us in a way that almost lifted us. I kid you not. It was in that moment where you see me kind of like walking all stumbly and kind of like rushing to the entrance of the building. I felt like I was in trouble. Like that was probably the most fearful I felt, because I was like, this is either gonna go really bad or I'm gonna get lucky. Because if I stayed outside that building, I was gonna get carried away, and I don't know where I was gonna land. But yeah, and that's why when we went inside the building, which by the way, we're not even allowed in, but they had to let us in because they could see that we were in trouble. The guy in the entrance, he was like, you guys gotta be careful, like that was legit. So yeah, that's why I don't recommend leaving your home right after a hurricane, because there's always remnants of the winds, and it's not guaranteed that you're not gonna get caught in a very risky situation as we did.
Hurricane Maria raged across Puerto Rico on Wednesday as the most powerful storm to strike the island in more than 80 years, ripping roofs off buildings, filling homes with water, and knocking out power to the entire population. When we can get outside, we will find our island destroyed.
They weren't kidding. It's crazy how many steps I had to go through just to make coffee. Yeah, everything was like a process, nothing was simple. Even the simplest things, like making coffee just took like double or triple the amounts of steps. So things like cooking it was like a huge hassle. Not to mention that we had to source water.
Service is completely out as of last night. However, I did receive a message around 3 a.m. from my best friend who lives near the beach that her house was just completely flooded, and then waking up having no service at all. It's a very desperate feeling not being able to communicate with anybody and having absolutely no idea what is going on.
if you wanted to see somebody, you couldn't call them. If you wanted to check on somebody, you had to go physically to their house and show up kind of unannounced, just to make sure you're okay. But the problem was that a lot of places were blocked by debris and or collapsed roads, you name it. So even if I wanted to go see specific people, or in the case of others who wanted to see their loved ones, many couldn't because they couldn't access their location because it was somehow blocked. And I think that was one of the more stressful parts of helping each other out. Like, you know, as an island, it was, at least at first, you know, as soon as the hurricane had passed.
So much brown. Oh, thank God. I was really worried my car wouldn't start.
I was also very worried that something would fall on my car, especially when my mom's car the alarm went off during the hurricane. I was convinced that a palm tree fell on them because there was a palm tree right next to our vehicles, which actually is still there. So that was a big concern, and I couldn't park it anywhere else because I live in an island. There's trees and palm trees everywhere.
I feel something strange when I hit the... Oh my gosh, the park. Jesus. I can't even... This is... That is a greenhouse, and as you can see, it is shattered. Uh-oh.
See, this right here, this was an example of how we literally couldn't get past certain roads because there's literally a giant tree completely covering it up. And we couldn't go into the gas station because there was a bunch of electricity cables just dangling over the entrance. So, and you know, most of these were not active because we didn't have a power grid, but still, it's kind of risky to touch those either way.
Oh my God. This is what I meant by the deforestation. It's like all the trees look like this, like just completely stripped. Oh my God. This looks like there was nothing ever here. We have to go now.
Wow.
Again.
I still can't believe that happened. Like, we were driving against traffic legally. I mean, there was no law because the island was literally like post-apocalyptic. Like, you could do whatever you wanted and get away with it, which is why there was so much robbery because, you know, there was no electricity, no resources to chase down criminals. We were in a state of emergency, but a lot of people took an advantage of that and did not do great things.
It's traffic because this one's blocked. This is insane. I can't believe it.
That is a hospital. It's now fully built, but it's just crazy to see how the hurricane literally smashed like some of the progress they had done, and that's like a hard concrete wall, and the hurricane just tipped it over. No more wall.
Oh my gosh. There's literally like 7 or 8 telephone pole light things just like all over the streets here. It's insane. This storm had no mercy over these poor trees.
Had no mercy over the island. It wasn't just the trees. At least the trees get regenerated, but society still hasn't.
But then again, it's Mother Nature, I guess. Con nosotras que la llevé para atrás y ella tiene un teléfono con servicio. I just wanted to know how are you. Oh my gosh. Not available.
Wow. I still don't know how that landline was working. Like that phone, there was absolutely no service. And you saw those telephone, I still don't even know what they're called, the poles with the cables and stuff. They were all down. That phone was not supposed to work. And to be honest, it's kind of freaky how it did. But at least it did.
Ocean Park is being flooded. Some houses with 7 feet, 4 feet of water.
The entire island just...
I don't even know how my mom got there, to be honest, because if she was in a flooded area, I don't know, something I'll have to ask her, I guess, but I've always wondered, how did she even get there?
looks so dark right now. I can't explain it quite well. It's not a nice sight.
It looked dark and depressing for like a day, and then the sun came out, and then it was depressing and hot, which was really uncomfortable.
I have to turn around because I think I went the wrong way. I'm literally in the middle of a very, very important interstate here. I'm sorry, no, not an interstate, a road.
Wow.
Look at the traffic lights.
I didn't know I did that.
The winds had to be really, really strong to be able to do this. I mean, look at this. Wow. Crazy.
So, this part, I'm not looking forward to it. I don't know how I'm gonna feel because, well, I'll just say it in a minute.
There's a very, very big palm tree. Oh my god. The roof is gone. Oh my god.
That's my grandpa, who actually passed away since this happened. And he didn't directly pass away from the hurricane, but his illness was a result of the outcome of the hurricane. And this is actually his watch that I am wearing because I knew that I was going to see him in this video. And I haven't really seen him since he passed away. So yeah, just thought I'd mention that. It's my first time seeing him alive in a couple years.
This used to have like
And hearing his voice. Wow.
a whole roof over it. For pretty much my entire life, this thing was covered. Oh no!
Hadn't even been 24 hours since the hurricane. My grandpa was already picking up stuff and fixing stuff.
Wow, look at that house. They lost the entire roof. Jeez, wow. Okay. Big palm tree here. Wow. I think I'm gonna go now. I just want to do a little, like, one last glimpse of the park.
And that was just day one. Wow.
¿Y tú no has cogido el expreso?
No.
Que el view del expreso es bien impresionante. Todos los árboles desnudos, así.
Just notice how there was two people randomly walking by the entrance of an expressway. That's how much the rules were being bent.
Wow. Yeah, it's completely blocked.
We could go in through Kmart maybe and avoid this traffic.
After Irma, there was just like 7 little trees down.
Look at all the trees.
Yeah,
are
this
down.
time they're all down.
Look at the roots of those trees. I think the problem is these trees were on a parking lot. See, they're all down.
Oh, something fell.
Oh God.
Notice how my cat's yawning, not yawning, meowing. Notice how everyone who was conducting traffic and kind of like in the sights of the most destruction weren't even police officers or first responders or firemen. No, it was civilians. People, like common people who were out, helping conduct traffic, telling people where to go, helping lift debris, you name it. And if I'm being honest, I don't remember seeing many first responders. For the most part, in the actual like destruction and chaos going on, it was just Puerto Rican citizens. They were the guiding force of the initial aid that was supplied to the island.
It's an extremely long line here, and we believe it's because the upcoming gas station is open. Or, wow, that is a really long line.
That's the total gas station right there.
Yeah, that's the one I went to before the storm. Wow.
And this was just a start. This was just with gas. Eventually, it started to be the same thing for water. It eventually started to be the same thing for diesel, for, generators and stuff. Eventually, you needed to make lines as well to go shopping for food. It was like everything. This was just the beginning.
That's a lot of people. Yep.
That's the
Gas
line for gas.
station is open. Jeez, look
So
at
we
all
should
these people.
Turn around. We should do a U-turn then.
Here's a look at how it looks like at night. It's like total darkness right now.
There's a mandatory curfew and we're kind of getting home almost.
Yeah, the streets are like deserted right now. It's really crazy. There's still a huge line just to get gas. Look at that. All those cars goes all the way to the expressway. All the way down there.
Wow.
Vlog count.
This was unfortunately, I think, the last boom that Kmart had, at least in Puerto Rico, because, eventually they actually just recently officially closed here. But again, it's just crazy how even the lowest chains of, places you can buy can often become like the most needed in a situation like this because there was nothing else open. There was Walmart, but Walmart is far away, at least for where I am. Wow.
pusieron arroz. Déjame llevarte la caja para dejarte con el nombre de la caja para llevarla a ella sola. Vente aquí.
We have been quite literally ditched. The person literally dropped us off and we have no service and we don't know where she is. Wow.
To your house.
This is really crazy.
Look at that.
Yeah, the gas station just fell apart.
Mira, tú ves el McDonald's. El McDonald's de allá abajo. Cuando llegues al McDonald's, doblas allá.
See, once again, there was like one first responder. Actually, he wasn't even a first responder. That was I think it was an electrician. You know, the ones that go around in those trucks to fix like the cables in the streets. And then the rest are just civilians helping around. It really goes to show the sense of community just exploded in the island because we had no one but each other to rely on. But yeah, actually, right before that though, we were kind of ditched because the person who had brought us there, I don't know where she went. And we didn't have cell service, so we couldn't really contact her. So for 2 hours, we were kind of scared. We were like, we're going to have to walk back home. And, you know, walking back home, we were either going to have to walk through the expressway like those two people that we saw previously, or we were going to have to walk through a very hot area. And by hot, I mean high in criminality, which was obviously not safe. So we were like, our options were also pretty scary.
Mira la fila que hay.
Wow.
Yo no estoy en fila, Alexandra. Yo tengo medio tanque y Laura también. Yo estoy chequeando Walmart y hay varias gasolineras aquí.
Okay, so this is something that I really need to clear up because I've done a number of interviews, and one of them that I did actually pretty recently was for Vice News. And in that specific interview that I did for Vice News, a lot of people were very confused as to why I was driving around even though I barely had any gas. And I think that there's something really important that a lot of people need to understand. I did not live walking distance from places. I could not go like on my bike. First of all, I didn't have a bike. I could not go just walking anywhere, not to mention there was debris everywhere and there was no order in the streets, meaning that the cars and the traffic was just like completely wild. So we had no choice but to use our vehicles, even though they were low on gas. And we had to do that so we can go out and source materials to survive, you know, food, water, gas. And this was an incredibly stressful thing to do because we had to save the gas that we had, but also use it to go source things to stay well and alive, obviously. I literally remember driving and feeling so anxious because I knew I was running out of gas, but there was nothing I could do about it. I had to continue going on. Otherwise, you know, we weren't gonna get the things that we needed. But at the same time, I didn't want to use it. And it was just like this conflict in my head of like, I can't use it, but I have to, but I can't, but I have to. But what if, like, what's going to happen when we run out? And I think it's incredibly important that people understand that because there is a lot of ignorance going on in the comment section of my interview with Vice. I don't think people in that comment section knew what they were talking about. I don't think they had ever really been through a hurricane, to be honest, at least of this magnitude. And clearly, I was not the only one. As you can see, there was tons of people out in their vehicles as well, sourcing out things to stay alive, I guess.
So, it's the middle of the day. I don't even know what day it is, to be honest, because we've been on like a constant survival mode. The entire island is just going crazy. I mean, where I live at least is a little bit under control, but I've heard from friends that, you know, around the island there's a lot of theft going on because of, you know, having absolutely no power, no water, barely any gas. To be honest with you, I don't remember what it's like to have like a normal life because it's just like I'm constantly going. So is my mom, getting like everything done, thing after thing after. You're kind of obligated to be efficient because you can't afford to waste anything right now. And right now I'm running out of gas. I just want to get out of here.
Recording this documentary started to get really difficult, and really just not enjoyable because I had so much on me. I had to help my mom, and I had to, we were in the process of getting ready to hopefully leave the island. But it was proving to be really challenging because we couldn't find the things that we needed. Literally, we needed a box to put my dog in. There were no Walmarts that had any, and most of them were closed. The same thing with things like water. It was so frustrating, and food. Everything was so limited, and every day was like we had to go source something different. So I can definitely feel this clip, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to include this clip when I was editing this documentary because I felt like it was kind of personal even. I felt it really brought out a part of me that, I had never really shown on my channel because, up until then my content was just me being positive and happy, and this showcased me under a lot of distress and pressure, and yeah, I really did have a hard time deciding if I wanted to include this, but I did because I wanted to keep this documentary as real and raw as I could. I didn't want to sugarcoat this experience.
This is not life. Hurricane Maria has been one of the hardest experiences I've ever been through. I mean, the storm itself was honestly the smallest part of it all because it was the aftermath that pretty much changed how I and many others lived. I mean, in a matter of hours, it took away the beauty of the place I call home and forced us to push our typical worries and routines aside in order to show up and survive. It was energy draining, emotional, scars, and very stressful, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. However, if I could take back this experience, I wouldn't, because despite all the things this storm took from me, it also gave me and keeps giving me a lot in return. The lack of communication and electronics forced me out of my nutshell and reconnected me with old friends I hadn't seen or talked to in years. It showed me how much we take something as simple as a cell phone for granted, but also how much we sadly rely on it. And last but not least, it gave me no choice but to take risks I wouldn't have otherwise prior to Maria. It made me grow, pushing my life in a direction I honestly never expected. And even though it's been a month and 15 days, I still feel like my world is hanging upside down and I'm struggling to adapt. But I truly believe that bad days come for good reasons, and I'm confident that somehow, some way, we will rise from this outcome and become a much better, much stronger Puerto Rico.
Our flight attendants to please prepare for takeoff.
Wow. You know, I forgot how powerful that ending was. I think that's my favorite part, honestly, of this documentary at least. Well, there it is. I gotta say, this documentary has aged well, and I think it will continue to, because it's not only is it my experience, but it's also a historical event that will always be remembered. And no matter who tells the story or through what lens we see it, it will always be Hurricane Maria. It will always be the hurricane that changed everything, for us at least. I gotta say, what I said in the end of this documentary, I don't know if I still feel the same. The experience, you know, changed the path that I was on for sure. I was in a very different place back then than I am now, both physically, emotionally, even financially. Even though it completely changed my life and, you know, it changed the direction that I was on, I wish it wouldn't have happened. Not for me, but for the sake of the island and the people who have truly, truly suffered or died as a result. Society just completely failed them. So, this was definitely an interesting experience to, you know, not only go back in time, but also just rewatch an experience that, for the most part, I have kind of buried in my mind, because not only was it really difficult, because it was a storm that basically, it was incredibly difficult, but also on a personal level, I feel like that is the most impact that I felt from this storm or hurricane. I will always say this. To me, the hurricane was the easiest part, like going through the actual storm, because it was the aftermath that was the most difficult to process. It quite literally uprooted me from not only where I was living, but the circumstances and situations that I was in at the time. You know, there's obviously so much about my style that has come a very long way since this documentary, but I wouldn't change anything about it. I feel like it was perfect for where I was. Most of all, it was real, raw, and honest. And it literally, like, it has so many imperfections, not only in the editing, but also just in the visuals. And even myself, like, I was really, I guess, unafraid to show my flaws, which, you know, for me, because I'm looking at myself, is a little bittersweet, but at the same time, I appreciate that I took that step and I wasn't afraid to show myself in a raw state that I had never really showcased before. And of course, you know, the island, which was far worse than I could have looked. So yeah, that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, you know, rewatching this gem with me. But most of all, I hope it reminded you that I guess this fight is still not over, you know, for us down here in this little island. As you saw, we are still very much recovering, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but it doesn't look like it's gonna be a quick fix. I mean, it's already been 4 years, so there's nothing quick about that. But hopefully this will get some sort of ball rolling and, you know, help the situation somehow. So thank you all once again for watching, and here's to Puerto Rico and its recovery. And I'll see you in my next film.